we're going to create some text here, but we're actually not going to use the text tool to do it. Let's start by creating a new file, and this file is going to be 700 pixels in width and 250 in height. We'll have a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. We'll have a white background and hit create. You'll want to use the tablet, the graphics tablet and drawing pen for this. It'll make it easier to control rather than using a mouse. You will need your brush tool. We want the brush tool to be set to hard round. The size of it should be 3 pixels, hardness 100%, and the color. So you'll need to make a new layer, and this is the layer that you're actually going to draw on. Make sure you don't draw on your background layer. And you are simply going to try to sign your name, your first name, in cursive. I am doing this from home, so I don't have the graphics tablet, and this is going to be a little challenging to try to do with the mouse. So I'm going to press pause so that I can get this done. All right, so I have my signature. Certainly would have been happier had I had a tablet with me, but I will make do with this. So now what we need to do is we need to do some color adjustment. I am going to go to, first off, make sure that this layer is selected where you just drew your text. And I am going to go to the image menu, and then I am going to go to adjustments and levels right here. And basically we're just wanting to make sure that we get rid of any stray dots. So over here on the left, this is our dark channel, so I'm going to move that a little bit to the right until it gets to about 65. Then this one on the left, these are the whites, and I'm going to move it to the left until it gets to about 165, and that's going to make the highlights kind of be right in the middle. Actually, I'll do 170. Okay, and that's just to make sure that we don't have any stray marks, stray gray anywhere in the document. Okay, so then I'm going to click OK. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the select menu, and I'm going to choose color range. And here from the drop down menu, I want to choose highlights and click OK. And notice that what it did is it selected all of the white. Okay, that's what we wanted, and that's part of why we did the levels. So next what I'm going to do is I am going to do select inverse. Now it's actually selecting the black, not the white. And you might have thought there might have been a better way to do it, but because that text, the signature, is so narrow, sometimes it's hard to select all of it. So this is the best way. I'm going to create a new layer, and on this new layer now, I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and up here in the contents, you'll see you have some options: foreground, background, color, content aware, and if you go down here, we have the option to fill it with white. And I'm going to click OK. Now, if I deselect, you're going to notice that what I have is basically, white text up here. Okay, and it's selected over the black. So what I want to do now is, you may actually need your signature for something in the future, so you can save that as signature in your folder. And then let's start a new file. This new file, we're going to go ahead and make a perfect square, and it's going to be 870 pixels by 870. It's going to be 300 pixels per inch, and we're going to choose a black background and click OK. So this is what it looks like right now. So I'm going to go back here to the signature, and that new layer that's on top, it's probably called layer 2 right now. I'm going to right click on it to duplicate the layer. Only this time I'm not duplicating it to this document. I am going to send it to that new untitled one that we just created and click OK. So if I go here now, we should see your signature like mine is. You can go ahead and close that signature document now, and we can attempt to use the move tool to move your text. Sometimes it's a little difficult based on the fact that it's so narrow. It's because you got to grab a good place to get a hold of it. So I'm going to move it here kind of in the center, and it doesn't have to be perfect right now because we're going to make some adjustments later. Okay? Now, you have a panel that is probably not open right now that we're going to use, and that is the Actions panel. And I'm going to go ahead and move it over here so that I can see all of it. Your text, your signature, you may want to resize it a little bit, whether it's a little narrower, a little less height. Okay, and that's again going to be up to you. If you have a short name, you probably want to stretch that out a little bit. All right, so on the Actions panel, if you look down here at the bottom, we have some icons. The folder right here allows us to create a new set. So I'm going to go ahead and click that folder, and I'm going to name it Spiro, S-P-I-R-O, Graph, G-R-A-P-H, and click OK. You'll see it makes a folder here. And with that folder selected, I am now going to click the one next to it that is going to allow me to create a new action. And this is going to be Spiro 1. Now, what an action does is it allows you to record a set number of steps that you may want to do over and over again later, and this makes it quicker and easier, obviously. So I'm going to hit record. You can see the little red button at the bottom. It's recording. What I do want to make sure that you understand is it's not recording the amount of time that it takes for you to do it. It's only recording the steps that you take. Okay? So we want to make sure that you are on the layer that has your signature. That's layer 1. And we are going to hit Control J to duplicate that layer. That's another way to duplicate. Now, we're going to transform this new layer. So you can either go to Edit Transform, or you can do Control T. That's the keyboard shortcut. Now, I'm going to zoom in real quick because I want you to be able to see this. Notice whenever I transform something, I have this little crosshair in the middle. I want you to think of this as a pivot point, because when you rotate something, it always has a pivot point that you rotate on. So those of you that are basketball players, you understand you've got a pivot foot that never moves and you rotate around that foot. Well, we're rotating around this pivot point. I want you to move that point somewhere over your first letter. Okay? So I'm going to move it, mine is right here. And I'm going to zoom back out a little bit to see my full screen. Now, once I have done that, you can see here in that Actions how it has duplicated the layer. You can see the point that it's taking. Now, I'm still on my Edit Transform, and look up here in my options. You see this little, I don't know, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called. Protractor that's showing rotation right here, and it's set at 0. Highlight it. We know that we have 360 degrees to go all the way around, so we have to put in a number that is going to be divisible, equally divisible by 360. So I chose 20. Okay? Then we're going to apply the transformation. And you can see that pivot point right there. Now, we can continue to do this all the way around. If we hold down Control, Alt, Shift, and T, it's going to continue to make that same duplicate, move the pivot point, and rotate until we get all the way around. And we have room for one more. Okay, so now it is a complete circle. It has made 17 copies, so 18 total with the first one. What we want to do is select all of those layers except for that background. Remember, I can do that by clicking on one and then shift click at the other end, and it selects everything in the middle. First thing I want to do is I want to group them. I'm not going to merge them, I'm going to group them. Okay? And to group it, I am going to do a Control G. And there is my group right there. So I will click on that group, and I'm going to do a Control A to make sure that all of my text in that group is selected. And I will use my options up here to center vertically and horizontally so that all of my text is in the middle of the, or I shouldn't say in the middle, so that it all is distributed equally from the middle. And then I can hit Control D to deselect. Now, it's pretty cool what we have already. However, it will look better if we can give it some color. So we are going to add a fill and adjustment layer and give it a gradient. So look down here in your layers panel, and you have some icons. You have the FX is a layer style, the rectangle with the circle is a layer mask, and the circle half white, half whatever the color is behind it is the fill or adjustment layer. So that's the one we're going to choose, and we are going to choose gradient. It's second from the top. Now you notice that it actually put a new layer in the layers panel, and then it popped up with this gradient fill. Remember, gradient just means a how it changes from one color into another. Now, what we're going to do first before we pick our colors is choose the style. And because this is a radial or a circular design, we want the radial gradient. I'm going to click on the gradient picker. We have some preset colors here that you can choose. You also have this little gear shift, which has lots of other options in it. Okay, so for example, if I wanted spectrums, I could go in and click append, and it's going to give me some spectrums. And with that spectrum, I could even alternate or change a color. So let's say I wanted more of that blue. I click OK, and then I could go to this green, and I could switch that. So you're not stuck just because it's up there. You can still change it. Click OK, click OK again, and then you are going to use the blending mode here in the layers panel, and you are going to change it to multiply. And then all you can see is the gradient you chose over the signature. Now that you have it done, you can stop your actions, and that records all the steps so that you could go in and do this with multiple pieces of signatures, words, whatever. It could even be done with a text as opposed to a signature. but it's the method in which you do it. So it's now saved here under Spiro 1. So now you go in and do a save as, period number, last name, Spirograph, save it as a Photoshop file so that you can edit it later. And then again as a JPEG, change that format so that you can put it on your Canvas ePortfolio.